Welcome back, battlers. Maroon6 here, and I'm just going to go into a breakdown of how my Sinister Cup has been going, or how the month of Sinister Cups went for me. And I've basically done all my cups already, so I'm revealing all of my strategies now and kind of talking about how I approached the Sinister Cup this month and how it can apply for you to other cups if you want to try out the strategy that I used this month. For Sinister Cup, there are a lot of different Pokemons that were meta, and what I did was I like to play in a style that throws unknown things at my opponents, or kind of off-meta. And this month, while I didn't feel like there was a bunch of off-meta options, if you will, after the move update that happened in the middle of October, there were a lot of different off-meta move sets that you could use. And the cool thing about that was that it would not be revealed to your opponent in draft. So you had this interesting moment where I could put out my Steelix and you would assume it was Dragon Tail. The first time you see it, it suddenly has Thunderfang, and if you are unsure of what to do in that circumstance, it will benefit me and make you have to think twice or think a little bit more. I used the alternative moveset on Steelix as well as Alolan Marowak using Fire Spin, so that my opponent didn't really necessarily know what the weaknesses of my team were until I revealed my movesets. And since I had practice with these off-meta movesets, I was able to kind of gauge my opponent's reaction from my practice, knowing that, hey, once I show Thunderfang Steelix, the likelihood is they're going to show their Steelix in the next round because they know it can counter my team. And one of the reasons why I made this comp was so that I could counter the single Poliwrath fighter team. So when a team that relied on Poliwrath as their only fighter Pokemon to take down the steel types. So to counter that, I used Probopass, which has an advantageous matchup into Poliwrath generally, as well as Thunderfang Steelix to then also be that additional counter. So my whole team could really kind of be a Poliwrath counter while not revealing that off the start. My strategy was also to lead safe. I led Dusclops a lot, or had it in the back so that I could switch to it and gain the energy advantage and have a safe swap. And really, this strategy works for really trying to win 2 games. There were plenty of times that I won the first 2 games and then I lost the third, or a lot of my games did go to 3 games because I slowly was revealing my movesets. So I might win game 1, but then they might take advantage of my weaknesses game 2. But remember that for the Sylph League Arena, the whole point is to win those 2 games if you are trying to win the tournament or do well in the tournament. So I really wasn't super worried. It wasn't like, oh man, like if I'm like when I'm practicing with somebody, it's not like I have to beat them every time to prove that my 6 is better than their 6. It's really I have to win the initial impression. That's all I have to do. I have to win those first 2 out of the first 3 games, and that counts as a win. And again, I got this idea from my time playing League of Legends. League of Legends was the first game I kind of took like competitively serious and really tried to hone my skills at, and kind of using again that idea of draft to benefit my ability to play in game. And really focusing on that for the team comp. I'm going to do a whole video on that later, and how the different skills that I got from League of Legends apply actually to Pokemon Go PvP, but I don't want to go into that too long and make this a super long video. So let's break down my team as I play kind of the tournament matches behind it. I didn't want to go into every single match because there's so many games, so you can kind of just watch the gameplay. And I'm not going to show people 6s because I don't want to get too much into that, but you can kind of see how my team throws my opponent off. Maybe you might see a bad switch, or you might see a moment where they overreact to the weird moveset. And given all of these matches that are in this video happen not necessarily at the very beginning of the month, so this sort of off moveset worked for the whole month, and I actually never changed my team, including my online cup. Team breakdown. Thunderfang, Steelix, Crunch, Earthquake, and that was to really, again, take advantage of the only Poliwrath fighter comps, and the only thing it actually loses by having Thunderfang is the Steelix matchup. So it also gives me higher DPS with my fast move to then do better actually against fighters like Medicham and Gallade. So that's great. Also helps me better against Drifblim, so I don't have to rely on crunch damage while it could Shadow Ball me to death. Probo Pass, which is again another Drift Blim preventer, because Drift Blim actually did pretty well into my team, given that I probably wasn't going to take double steal game 1 if they had 2 fighters. It also beats Hex Alolan Marowak, and it has shield pressure for Medicham, and that's actually pretty huge. Like, the thing that's different from Steelix to Probo Pass or to Bastiodon was that I can threaten a Thunderbolt, and if you don't block it, that's half of your health. And that's still a good threat to potentially get rid of one shield, which is much better than a Bastiodon, which I'm never going to get to that second move, or if you do, then you're still going to farm up to 100 energy, and I don't know what you're going to throw next. The Probo Pass also draws attention in draft because not a lot of people had it, and it draws out the opponent's Steelix or Medicham for me to kind of think about counterpicking. Dusclops. Here's my avatar with the Dusclops. It's going to be my next big team member that will go on eventually my large banner. I'm going to keep adding to my banner every single month to show you my favorite Pokemon, and really Dusclops was my definite MVP for this month. It was like this safety net, safest switch or safest lead, basically is safe to everything minus like Bastiodon, and it has high shield pressure, and it beats most ghosts and beats all the fighters, and yeah, it was even good against Steelix, which was the main steel tank that everybody was bringing. So great solid pick. You'll see in all of these games that are going on behind my dialogue that really I just let it like 90% of the time. I got comments multiple times that they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think you're going to lead Dusclops again. It was because their comp had nothing that dealt with Dusclops in a very hard like counter way. So it was always something that can guarantee results that I knew about how they were going to work out. All right, next pick was Mudshot Poliwrath. Another thing where I'm using something that's slightly off meta that people are going to assume that you have Bubble so that it can beat Steelix and Alolan Marowak. But the Mudshot, I just had found in my practice that Bubble had kind of just not been as consistent for me, or I didn't know how to gauge it well. And Mudshot made it so that I could threaten Psychics with the Hydro Pump. I have this crazy one-shot move, and the Dynamic Punch really just makes it heavy hitting, so I didn't feel like I was missing Power Up Punch in any way. Honestly, after facing opponents, I think the best moveset for Poliwrath in this Sinister Cup was Bubble, Dynamic Punch, Hydro Pump. It's what gave me probably the most trouble, so note for that. But Mudshot beats the other Poliwrath, so again, just my whole team is anti-Poliwrath. And also gives me the potential for hitting the first charge move, because a lot of people, especially early in the month, were not expecting Dynamic Punch. Again, finisher potential with Hydro Pump, and the only downside of it is really that it loses to Alolan Marowak. But again, perception in the draft in the first game or until I show my Poliwrath is that it will beat their Alolan Marowak. So again, something I can mix around with. Next one I used was Fire Spin Alolan Marowak, which I almost never played game 1 because I wanted to see if they brought out their Alolan Marowak and if it had Hex or if it had Fire Spin. Because if it has Hex, then that's another loss matchup, and that helps me gauge how their team is. So the big thing about Fire Spin Alolan Marowak is it beats Steelix, it beats Probo Pass. So again, that's another thing abusing the single steel comps where people were only bringing Steelix, especially since I'm pressuring out the Steelix by having the Probo Pass and then showing my Thunderfang Steelix. My Fire Spin Alolan Marowak makes it so I can bring that in game 2 and then counter that Steelix that they're going to probably bring out after seeing Thunderfang and knowing I have Probo Pass. The only con of the Fire Spin in comparison to the Hex is that it has less shield pressure, loses to I think all of the ghosts, but I'm not bringing it to be a ghost counter. Just bring it so it has this Shadow Ball one shot as well as beats the Steelix. All right, my other really fun pick, I really have to give credit to I'm Salty For You and 20 Butters who brought this out in that early San Francisco Cup that I did the video on, and how awesome of a pick it was for really countering those main 3 Steelix, Poliwrath, and Alolan Marowak. It kind of became that fun flavor pick on my team, which also, in addition to the Probo Pass, brought attention so that people were like, oh my gosh, he's going to bring a Slowbro. Oh my gosh, he's going to bring a Probo Pass. And I could use that to my own advantage. Some teams that I went against, if you watch in the videos behind, some of the teams that I went against actually just couldn't handle the Slowbro, or they couldn't handle the Slowbro Dusclops combo. So it really added another check to where other people's comps were. And if they couldn't handle it, basically meant that I was going to probably win the series. The only con was that it loses to Thunderfang Steelix, and it loses to Probo Pass, and it loses to Ghosts. But with that Water Gun, Water Pulse, Psychic moveset, it just was a really strong pillar of the comp. And also pressured the opponent into bringing their ghost types to try and deal with it. If they brought in their Alolan Marowak with Hex, game one, it was probably because they're thinking about my Slowbro and kind of being able to do damage to it. And in broad strokes of my comp, which I already told you is all about kind of that mislead in game one, my ghosts were not weak to the steel types that people would bring, especially if it was just Steelix. So Fire Spin Alolan Marowak, as well as the Dusclops. Dusclops has pretty good matchups with Steelix all around. And also going against that circle, my steels were not weak to Poliwrath. So it kind of threw off the interpretation of the meta that most people were following, the rock, paper, scissors, which then helped my opponents misread my team even more. Generally, whenever I looked at anyone's 6 that I faced, I was guessing they would probably go pretty balanced. There's no reason to... A lot of people go balanced in their first game of like one of each category, so you can be really simple and say Alolan, Marowak, Steelix, and Poliwrath. So me guessing that they're probably going to bring Poliwrath, I'm going to bring that Thunderfang, Steelix, and Slowbro and Dusclops as like my safe lead or safe switch, which that ensures that I win one of the 3 matches against the Poliwrath that they're bringing. And that's kind of how I helped myself in those game ones to then basically put a lot of pressure on my opponent to then see what they want to do for game 2. Now, plenty of game ones that I did lose and I didn't read them correctly, but the adaptation of seeing where I thought they would go in reaction to my weird movesets was what helped me win the best of 3. I think if there's anything that like almost all players can improve on, including myself, is definitely working on that draft aspect of Pokemon Go, where you're kind of thinking about how can I craft my team to better handle my opponent's team no matter what they have. I think a lot of people just kind of get stuck and they're like, oh, well, I'm just going to do the strongest psychic Pokemon, so I'm going to pick Cresselia. Oh, I'm going to pick the strongest ghost type Pokemon. Oh, well, that's Haunter. And when I say strongest, I mean beats all of their own typing. So like Haunter beats all of the ghosts, Cresselia beats all of the psychic types, and then Steel. Oh, well, I'm gonna pick Steelix because, and that's what PvPoke says, and that's what everybody says. Or I'm gonna bring Medicham because it beats all of every single one of the fighters. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best. And when you lock your team in, that's necessarily too meta. That means everybody's practiced against it. Like everybody. The best players have already practiced against all of the best movesets and probably memorized even the simulations. So anything that you can do to throw off that and kind of craft your own picks, your own off-meta picks, which I'll probably do a video about that later. But anything you can do to kind of throw off anybody is already going to be a plus for you, as long as you know in depth just as well how your Pokemon will handle their team. So yeah, Sinister Cup has been like a really good month for me. Very good month. Honestly, probably better than any other month that I've even had in season 1. So going with a total of how many battles that I've won, I believe that puts me at a record. Let's see. So if you include my ongoing Sinister Cup and ongoing General Great League online cup through Ghost Stadium and my record that you see here, I'm currently 18-1 this season in the first month, which is actually just crazy. And I honestly have used the same team. I just kind of stuck with my team. I was ready to make some changes after the first cup, but I ended up just deciding not to. I felt like I had a good mastery of what I wanted my team of 6 to do, and it seemed like even no matter the slight changes in everybody's teams, where people started taking more Drift Blim or people started taking different movesets like Dynamic Punch on Poliwrath, it still seemed like it was a pretty solid team to work with. Again, I loved this month. It was a great month seeing everybody and even going to new areas. I hadn't been down to a San Jose tournament yet, and so it was super cool to see everybody there and see some new faces that I hadn't faced against, but I've been very active in the Bay Area Pokemon Go PvP scene. So yeah, thank you again to all of the tournament hosts. It was a great time. And yeah, I'm really excited for next cup. The Ferocious Cup, and I'm going to do a whole video on that, and that'll be my next video talking about what mindset kind of. I don't like thinking of the early meta as just like this is the meta breakdown. Boom. These are the concrete, rock solid, everything's right. Because there's so many people who are really good at innovating new picks, like the Slowbro, that will break what everybody has already set up. So I'm going to go into that more next video. But until then, I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you again. Any like and subscribe really means a lot to me. And yeah, I can't wait to keep making more content for you guys. I'll catch you all next time. Also, I almost forgot. I just bought my Colossal Pass. And yes, I am a free-to-play player, but I still got my Colossal Pass. So I'll be covering my journey with the Colossal Pass, which hopefully might be in some fun location, which I might be traveling for. So stay tuned for that, as well as me talking about how I keep up with being free-to-play while also keeping up with people who do put money into the game. Yeah, it's gonna be super awesome. So I'll let you know, and you'll see my whole adventure through the Colossal Pass and all my raids and the special research. I will be doing a video on that for sure. So cool. I'll catch you next time.